good afternoon. It's Sandy, your work-at-home grandma. Just checking in with you today on another installment on the Rubies series. Last week, we found Kaya, our heroine, in another predicament. For those of you that have not been following along on the series, you can find all of the different excerpts on my blog. There's all the way back to how Ruby started, how I got the idea to write the series, all the way to the point we're at now. And basically, my grandmother is the heroine of the book, and the part of the book that's on her life is a true story. She actually came from Norway in 1913 and came over on the Lusitania and left her two children there in Norway with full intention of returning for them. But when she got over here, she found out that things weren't as easy as what she thought, and she ended up having to stay in America. She married here, and she had a little girl, and the actual Kaya actually had four children. But in the book, I followed just one of those children, the life of one of those children, which was actually my mother. So a lot of the child in the book, whose name is Marty, her life is kind of patterned after my mother. Not everything is true. It goes from some real life events into some fictional events. But it makes for a great story. And so in our book, last week we found Marty, or the week before last, Marty was burned severely on her hands and her arms. And last week we found out that she was disfigured from the burns. And because Hans, Kaya's husband, would not allow Marty to go to the hospital. Back in those days, they did not send people to the hospital. I mean, you take care of it yourself. She had blood poisoning. It went through her whole body. And so she lost most of her teeth, and her arms and her hands were scarred. But some of the roots were damaged on her teeth, so she never did get any permanent teeth in those areas. So, and my mother suffered the same thing. So basically, Marty was her child, and then she had a baby after Marty. It was a little boy, and last week we saw him succumb to pneumonia. And at that time, Kaya saw for the first time a side of her husband that she didn't know existed. She was very bitter and angry at Hans because originally he had raped her when she came from Norway, and that's how she got pregnant with Marty. And then when the second child came along, well, she was really angry because she just knew that this meant she'd never be able to return to Norway. Last week we found Hans actually realizing her predicament, realizing how she felt, and telling her that he would find a way for her to return to Norway. In our episode this week, we find things going from bad to worse again for poor Kaya. It wasn't long after this incident with the baby happened that Hans took ill, and it was discovered that he had congestive heart failure and that he could not do anything for himself. And Kaya had to completely take over running the farm with help from others. And it was little Marty that was left without a father and any attention that she needed. She was a very, very a shy and introverted child. And it was when she was 4 years old that an event would happen that would completely change her life for the worse. And it all had to do with Hans and Kaya's relationship. So I hope that you will tune in and that you'll read the excerpt on my blog, and that you'll continue to tune in weekly for more of Rubies Escaping the Curse.